Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Enterprise AI Unlocked, the podcast where we explore how AI is reshaping the modern enterprise, one decision, one workflow, and one agent at a time. I'm your host, Paul Brzozowski, and I'm part of the founding team at Olakai, the enterprise AI intelligence platform helping organizations measure, govern, and scale AI with confidence. This series was born out of countless conversations with executives, all asking the same question. How do we move from AI experimentation to measurable business impact? Each week, we sit down with leaders who are answering that question in real time, unpacking how innovation moves from pilots to production, and what it takes to make AI truly work at scale. And to kick off our very first episode, couldn't think of a better guest to start with. Joining me today is Xavier Casanova, CEO and founder of Olakai, and the driving force behind our mission to make enterprise AI measurable, governable, and ultimately successful. Xavier, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us.
Likewise. Thank you, Paul. Look forward to this.
Absolutely. Same here. I'm quite excited for this episode. Indeed, I know we've been thinking about it for a while, so I truly appreciate you being here today with us. Before we dive into our five core questions, let's start with your journey. You've been leading AI transformation at Olakai from day one, helping some of the world's most complex enterprises navigate the shift from experimentation to measurable outcomes. What originally sparked your interest in building Olakai? I'm quite curious. And how did that early vision evolve into what we now call the Enterprise AI Intelligence Platform?
Yeah, so you know this, but I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm originally from Europe. I've been in Silicon Valley for about 25 years, and I've always been in enterprise software. And really, I started in the early 2000s with a web analytics startup, my first startup, working with big retailers. Think about Costco, Banana Republic, and a few of these big names. Best Buy was a customer as well. And that's where I got hooked into turning digital exhaust into actionable insights, probably because I'm at my core a math person. I love numbers. Most recently, I was the CEO of a NASDAQ company, in the voice AI company. And I was quoted in the NASDAQ. And so I've been living in applied AI at scale for a while now. And honestly, I am blown away by what is happening today with AI, with enterprise AI. And it really feels like this is a special moment. But there's one question that keeps pulling me back. And again, that's probably because of my background. And that's, how do we measure AI? What is the value? How do we prove it? And these are questions that I've had to answer in my career over and over again. And for me, that is the thread that led me to starting Olakai, giving enterprises real visibility into the business impact of AI, so we can move from cool experimentation and cool little demos into actual durable ROI. And I should also mention that we're backed by the AI Fund. This is Andrew Ng's startup incubator here in Palo Alto, just a couple of miles away from where it all started for me, which is Stanford University. So it's a nice bonus, and it feels like going back to the source in so many respects.
It sounds like an incredible story, and we will unpack this. I hope in the conversation today, I'm sure the audience will love a little bit more to learn more about that story and how did you get it all together with Andrew Ng himself as well. But I took a quick note in the beginning. You mentioned something that immediately clicked with me. Turning digital exhaust into decisions, Xavier. That's such a powerful image, and it really captures what we are here to explore. But because this is our first episode, let me take a quick moment to set the stage for everyone listening. Each week on Enterprise AI Unlocked, we will use a simple 5-question framework to unpack how organizations are actually making AI work, not just in theory, but in practice. We will talk about how companies move from experimentation to execution, how they measure value and prioritize investments, how they manage governance and risk, and finally, where they see the next wave of impact coming from. It's the same 5 questions every guest will answer, giving us a consistent lens to compare what's working and what's not across industries. So with that foundation, let's dive right into the first one. We'll talk a little bit about experimentation and execution right here. So Xavier, when you work with your customers, or perhaps even in your own experience, when deploying AI or agents in production, what's been the biggest hurdle in turning early experimentation into measurable success?
I think there's really two challenges that seem to show up every time with enterprise AI. The first challenge is simply business clarity. When we evaluate the impact and the ROI of AI, what are we actually measuring? Are we measuring productivity gains, efficiency gains? Are we measuring how often people use AI or employees, or how often some of these agentic workflows execute time saved? So there's a lot of different ways to calibrate the effectiveness of AI. And the second, I think, big challenge here is a technical challenge. If we agree this is how we're going to define our KPIs, this is what success looks like for enterprise-wise for AI. Now, how do we technically measure this? Where's the data stored? How is the data processed? Who's going to be maintaining all this code? And how do we make sure that the data that we have is available to everybody? That's the technical side of this problem. And so what I see is some teams trying to build their own uh, platform for doing this internally. And it's very hard. In practice, I've seen this happen 25 years ago when I was building my first web analytics company. And I see that again when you start to build this type of infrastructure within your business with your own existing resources. There's going to be issues of maintenance, talent also. More and more, my belief is that businesses need to adopt a platform for collecting this data, processing the data, allowing comparisons between different AI tools. And that really is actually what Olakai is about. So once you set the foundation, once you define the North Star outcome, and you publish a very simple ROI view on AI, scaling of AI becomes a decision and not a debate because you have the clarity of data to inform your investments moving forward. And so for me, the biggest hurdle is really visibility. In 2024, as you know, most companies were rolling out chat for employees. That was the big thing. Now in 2025, we're moving to agentic AI. And the systems that we use are not just suggesting or assisting, they're actually making decisions for us. And that's the shift that I think is going to require instrumentation, measurement, governance in 2025. These are not optional systems anymore. They're absolutely required.
Amazing. Actually, I'd like to get back to it a little bit, especially on the agentic shift, as we really see so many other players, established players, entering this market at the moment. But essentially, that really resonates. So it's really interesting how you framed it, Xavier. It's that foundation of scaling just becomes a rather decision, not a debate. And I think that's exactly where many organizations are right now, trying to move from excitement to execution. And with that, that actually brings us naturally to the next question, which is about measurement. That's the promise of the show, to keep it practical. Let's talk a little bit about proving value itself. If you had, Xavier, to pick one metric to prove AI's value to your board or leadership, what would it be and why?
I think it really depends on the industry and the workflow. I would start with business value for a given use case, then pick the metric that directly ties to that use case. You deploying voice AI for your drive-through. Well, first you're going to look at cost savings, primarily labor saved, but also you're going to be looking at things like the accuracy of the AI system, the speed or the performance, and the throughput that the AI system is allowing you to achieve in your drive-through. Now, if your use case is customer support, then the headline metric might be number of tickets handled autonomously by the AI. Again, probably with a certain quality standard. And so you see the common theme is really the business value, right? You define the business value for the workflow and you let that definition drive what to report to the leadership team. And then if you want to press the pedal on that use case, or if you decide to move on to another use case. And again, the core theme is really the business value in everything that we do when we deploy AI, and the business value also for future investment.
It makes actually a lot of sense. And the first thing that comes to my mind, I'm a little bit of a car guy myself. And sometimes friends, family ask me, like, what is the best car, Paul? My answer typically is, where are we going? What are we going to do with it? Right? There
It
is no
depends,
best car, right? It really depends on what you want to do with it. But obviously, we're not here to talk about the cars. Maybe we'll have one episode more on that. We'll make some AI game with it as well. But what I heard is business value first, metrics second. And I really actually like that distinction, Xavier, because too often teams fall in love with activity data instead of outcome data. And I don't think this is how modern leadership should be running.
And by the way, that's exactly what happened with web 20 years ago. We're measuring page views and number of sessions, number of visitors, and the transition to measuring conversions and revenue generated is what really brought a lot of growth into e-commerce, because we were able to prove the value of having an e-commerce website for a lot of these brick and mortar companies back then. And the same thing's happening with AI.
Right. And it just makes a lot of sense. And maybe we'll get back to that analogy a little bit, because that is actually an interesting point on its own. How much can we find from the .com and early 2000s lessons to bring to scale what we do with AI? But ultimately, for me, what it really means, it's all about quantifying outcomes, and that in perspective shall change how you prioritize, which makes actually perfect segue into the next topic, which concerns how to decide where to double down. Let's talk about prioritization, Xavier. Obviously, nothing new here. Budgets are tightening, shrinking, no different for AI projects. And those I actually have seen multiplying. My question is, how do you decide, Xavier, which initiatives deserve more investment and which should be paused or reevaluated?
So the customers that we work with typically will look for high value, high frequency workflows first. So these are the places where even a tiny improvement in productivity or efficiency is going to be compounding over time every day and then bring a tremendous amount of value. And that is also why you see coding copilots exploding, the Cursor, Cloud Code, Codex, and so on, simply because developers use these tools every day, all day long. And over time, the benefits are incredible. But there are other use cases in hospitality. Think reservations or common guest requests. So high volume of the same thing, repeatable intent. And these are the scenarios where you get the most leverage out of AI, because we're able to put AI in charge and autonomously deal with a lot of these interactions. And the same logic applies to B2C and retail. For example, in e-commerce, AI is being deployed extensively to improve the customer experience, because there's just a lot of people kind of wanting the same thing, and AI is extremely effective at it. So the key here is really to chase compounding, novelty, compounding, and to never stop measuring. And that, I think, is what is going to drive the conversation in enterprise AI for years to come.
Sounds like a great framework. And I actually love the parallel you drew with coding copilots here as well. It's a simple way to explain exponential return. And ultimately, that will be the focus for many organizations, right? The repeatable, I think you mentioned this in this exact way, high frequency workflow is where true ROI hides in plain sight. All right. Another topic, I guess I'm quite curious just to see if this is a popular topic with your customers, Xavier. Let's talk a little bit about governance, risk, and control. With everything happening around the world, obviously compliance is the last thing that we want to deal with when it comes down to chasing speed, innovation, but governance is becoming a huge theme. So how do you balance innovation with control, ensuring AI stays productive, safe, and compliant at scale?
Yeah, so this is something we hear from customers all the time. It's a recurring theme in enterprise AI. And the good news is that in the US, we still have room to innovate. And that's in comparison to, let's say, the EU. For us, the rules are clear, and I would say we have a bit more freedom. So the real drag in adoption isn't really the rules, it's the data foundation. That's what we hear constantly from our customers. If the data is messy, if the access to data is ad hoc and not very well governed, then governance will turn into a real bottleneck for AI adoption. So we treat governance as the foundation for AI growth and as a continuous practice that evolves with adoption. So practically, this is where I point teams to use Olakai to monitor compliance in real time because we run these automated checks, these auditable logs, and we provide simple dashboards that turn compliance into an everyday activity that really enables the adoption of AI with more confidence. In other words, when we are complying and we're tracking our compliance on a ongoing basis, then the approvals to get new tools, new AI tools, or new agents to be deployed at a company will be much faster because the risk is a lot less.
So I think I heard this right, so I'll try to repeat this. Governance as a foundation for growth rather than a constraint. That's really the message that you try to spread with your customers, right?
Correct, exactly.
So honestly, that is a big mindset shift. When compliance becomes continuous, adoption actually accelerates. That's the theory. I actually haven't asked you about shadow AI. Xavier, actually, I haven't told you that, but when we were coming up with those 5 questions, the framework for each episode moving forward, obviously we want to make it as repeatable as scalable. So we compare the top voices in the space and get that hype out of the real growth in practice that we're observing in the space with the other leaders. But when we were working on the set of questions, preparing for the show, we were thinking about, is it compliance, is it governance, or do we just ask about shadow AI? Because that also comes up in the conversations. Are you running into that term yourself? Obviously, shadow IT, nothing new, but shadow AI, is that a thing with your customers as well?
Yes, it's always a thing, primarily because many of the companies that are adopting AI are adopting it with a bottoms up approach where they let the teams choose the best AI tool for their use case. And because that's been sort of the way things have gone for the last 18 months, 2 years, there's a lot of technology that has not been vetted. These IT and security departments a little bit on the defensive. So with shadow AI, I think the most important thing is to acknowledge that it exists and detect and actually manage shadow AI. There are some tools that probably do not belong to your tech stack and should be retired. But perhaps in all the tools that you've detected with shadow AI that are shadow AI, perhaps there's a few of them that actually add quite a bit to the bottom line. And these are the tools that you want to be promoting to a larger audience and leveraging at the company level. But again, it
Interesting.
goes back to measuring, detecting, and using data to make those decisions.
I think you mentioned this in the very beginning of our call, the visibility, right? And I guess visibility could be an opportunity as well to use for enablement in this sense as well. I'll actually like that positive frame of shadow AI as well. It's not all the bad AI that we should be aware of. It's all the AI where we need to be aware of and then define ourselves, I guess, what works best and what's needed. And ultimately, your employees or customers will tell you what the journey should be all about. I guess that's a perfect setup for our final question. And I actually want to touch on that a little bit with regards to the initial introduction of you, AI Fund, and the story of Olakai. This one is about the future outlook, the next horizon. As you look ahead, as you work with Andrew and his team on a daily basis, where do you guys see enterprise AI creating the most tangible impact over the next 12 months?
So I see 2025 as the year agentic AI becomes practical. And I think the hype is going to be loud and some of it will crash for sure. But what endures is ROI with safety, measurable savings, revenue, all within trusted and auditable guardrails. You'll see the first wins where agents can read data, write records, and even execute transactions autonomously within well-governed systems. Think, ops agents that resolve routine requests end to end without the intervention of a human and only escalate exceptions to humans. Think about software developers using agents that will autonomously open PRs, are going to be running tests, are going to fix, bugs that they discover, all with or without a human supervision. And so I think the stakes are really high because the cost savings are real, the potential is real, the urgency of getting this type of technology adopted is very high. The bar for evaluating all the systems is simple. Does it pay for itself? And can we prove that it's safe? And for that, I think the leaders in the industry need to do two things. One, they need to measure outcomes, not just usage. And number two, make those governance investments from day one. That's what lets AI agents act autonomously and at the same time will allow the business to trust the results. And so I'm really excited about 2025, really excited about 2026. I think we have a lot of exciting technology coming our way, and most important, measurable business results to validate our intuition that AI is actually changing the world in a positive way.
So, like Xavier, ROI with safety, right? That's the lesson from this driving school. And I love the phrase that agents that finish work, not just chat about it, right? These were the two things that really stood out for me. Well, actually, there was one more thing, Xavier, the human in the loop. I think this is something that I'd like to revisit constantly as well. This is actually not what we have decided to bring in one of the questions as we try to keep these podcast series a little bit on the shorter end, just to keep the engagement and focus on the topic and the practical impact in the enterprise AI world. But ultimately, maybe what I would love to do is maybe we can schedule a little bit extra time in early 2026 to talk how that prediction is actually happening and ultimately how that supervision of agents evolves. And then I'd love to learn a bit more about your perspective about the human in the loop as science on its own as well. So with that, Xavier, thank you for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show. I appreciate you sharing your journey and perspective on how enterprises can move from experimentation to measurable, responsible AI adoption. It's been a great pleasure, sir.
Likewise, all the pleasure was mine. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. And everyone, that's a wrap. Today's episode comes to an end. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. Each week, we talk with leaders shaping the future of enterprise AI, uncovering how measurement, governance, and enablement come together to turn innovation into results. I'm Paul Brzozowski from the founding team at Olakai, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.